Hey, welcome back to this edition of So Sports. U.S. sports fans were polled on what sports they'll be most interested in at this year's Winter Olympic Games. Their answer? Snowboarding. One of the game's newest competitions, and the same could be said in the summer ranks with skateboarding. Two sports often intertwined with counterculture and anti-commercialization. But that's changing, and we discussed it on this week's So Sports Sit Down with our friends at 4Down. We are at 4Down hanging out with the one and only Rob Cahill.
What's going on, brother?
We're nearly a decade into this place, and the amount of change that you've seen just in a short time has to be maybe a little confusing, a little exciting, and just a bit nerve-wracking.
All those things. You were correct on all that, on all those levels, absolutely. And we never technically have the resources to do the things that we do, right? We're just incredibly resourceful, and that always starts with, first of all, our talent and our will, and then you know, you operate on a little bit of faith, and before you know it, you pull things off.
Well, it takes friends, for sure. And fortunately for you, you've made a lot of friends throughout your entire career. But take me back to the very beginning of that career. It was a very different world. It was a very different sport. When you talk about skateboarding in particular, what got you into the sport in the beginning, and what took you into the career that you made it out to be?
Wow, what a great question, man. Well, for me personally, you know, it goes back to the mid-'80s. So I've been skateboarding 40 years. Right, it's a crazy thing to say. So I saw Back to the Future. I got a skateboard, and I just started living in my imagination once I found skateboard magazines, which were all coming out of California, and you were seeing this international world of skateboarding and the crazy looks and fashion and styles and everything they were doing. I was like, man, that is for me, you know? So even though I was the only skateboarder I knew when I started off the first few years, I mean, it was just something that, it was an opportunity to just feel free, and it didn't depend on anybody else, you know? So to this day, we try to make sure things are as accessible, and there's tons of opportunities, and we're easily accessible, right? Because there's a lot of kids and a lot of people you'll find in skateboarding that have similar stories. They didn't have necessarily the resources to do everything, but they found four-wheel freedom the moment they found skateboarding.
Yeah, I love that, four-wheel freedom. I've heard you throwing that around a lot.
It's real.
It is funny that you mentioned Marty McFly being your inspiration. So many kids nowadays, maybe Tony Hawk, the Nigel Houstons in the more modern sense, you're looking at a 1985 classic as what sparked your interest in the sport. I mean, it's just a completely different world we live in when you talk about skateboarding, but I think we've talked about this in the past. The fundamentals are the same, and that is, you know, having the freedom of four wheels, and then also being able to express yourself in essentially one of the most unique ways that sports has to offer. You
could frame it as a sport. Also, you could frame it as an art form. I tend to be more towards the art form side, but like my partner Mike Crum, who skates the vert ramp, vert lends itself to more of a competitive paradigm. But for us street skaters, see, for me, I operate in a world that wasn't designed for me, right? So I have to be creative as a street skater. As a skater skating this, you're operating in an environment that was optimized for skateboarding. This is a human pendulum, right? This is a flying trapeze. And not a lot of people, you know, there's a lot of clowns in the circus, but there's very few people on the trapeze. So this is a very rare form of expression.
And honestly, just when you look around us, the actual physical entity that we're in, this giant vert's one of a kind in its own right.
It really is. You'll find skate parks all over the country. I think Dallas-Fort Worth has something like 15 skate parks in the suburbs, right? But you won't find a vert ramp in any of them. You can't just go up and skate Tony Hawk's ramp, right? So this is the only professional vert ramp that's open and accessible to the public for free in the entire country.
It does bring up almost perhaps a difficult or a tricky conversation for somebody like you who finds so much joy in the root of what the sport's all about, right? That counterculture, that ability to express yourself.
Yes.
But then the commercialization of it. You want the sport to become more popular, but then again, there are some drawbacks to that. So most recently, skateboarding being included into the Olympics.
Yeah, you know, and you find a lot of mixed reactions for that. But at the end of the day, you know, we can't fight progress, and we can't be stuck in the past. We have to embrace what is, and inevitably, if something is wonderful, which we know skateboarding is, you know, we've seen some stats that suggest that skateboarding is only second worldwide to soccer in terms of, you know, activity that people are doing. And so the same way that people can kick around a soccer ball, they can all kick around a skateboard. You don't have to have a soccer field to play soccer. You don't have to have a skate park to skate. You know, so it's accessible to a lot of us who don't necessarily have all the resources in the world. But we're lucky that once in a while we are able to gather resources, and maybe sometimes we get sponsors like we have gotten, and we're able to actually build something and make something. When you think about, you know, the video games and other things that, because of people being able to see this on TV, and thank you for giving us the spotlight, you know, things like that, the video games, everything else, they only help us. We have to embrace that, right? And so what I'm seeing on the community level is we have just as many girls skating as guys. Girls are on fire around the world. And when we do our events, we get girls and guys. Last time we did our big event, we had Olympians and X Game athletes that were like in their teens to their 60s, right? From over 11 countries here, right? All for free, because this is sort of a nomadic thing that people do for love, even if they're world famous pros, you know? So it's cool, and you have to embrace it. And inevitably, something that's awesome is gonna go worldwide and evolve, you know? So you gotta embrace it, you gotta love it. Even if, you know, someone like me and you see some of these little girls that are doing stuff that I could never ever do, you know, you gotta love it.
I guess this might be the hardest question I ask, and perhaps we can end on this, but what would you describe 4Down as?
Wow, that's a good question. That's a good question. Well, I think we're a facility, we're an organization, and we're a community. I think that we're having fun exploring what's possible. I think that we're a beacon of hope. You know, you were here the other day, you could see, this is what I see here in our community is a genius community of all this potential and talent. It has a place to develop. And I see what the America I would like to look like, you know? This is the America I want to live in. And so, you know, everyone's welcome. All you got to do is be cool. So we just try to set up a situation that anyone who wants to be cool, anyone who wants to be helpful rather than harmful, anyone who wants to be creative rather than destructive, they have an access point. They have a way to get involved. So come on, join us. I mean, we need all the help we can get. And we all want to feel better. It feels better to be helpful. It feels better to have fun, right? Make an impact. So that's what we're here to do. We're just doing it from a different angle because we are contrarians. We are from the outside, right? But we can celebrate that and at the same time welcome everybody in.
Rob, you just described so many different things, so many different characteristics. It all sounds like a skate park. It all sounds like skateboarding.
Yes.
Helping the guy next to you, teaching somebody how to do a kickflip, and welcoming one and all.
That's it. That's it. That's it. Even when we're competing, we're being encouraging and cooperative. You know what I mean? Because ultimately you're competing with yourself, right? You're trying to do the best you can do. So it's even when we compete, I think it kind of brings the best out of everyone. So that's what we're here to do, man. Have fun and make the most of every resource. Primarily people, make the most of our humanity. So that's what this is. It's one big experiment in humanity.
Rob Cahill, one of the absolute best. Be sure to support 4Down. You can join in on their charity work on Sundays and Wednesdays, or support any day of the week by donating at 4down.org.